It's Nun Hey. Yes, Nun Hey Amid Aleph towards the bottom. Yeah, we did two right. We're in Nun Hey Amid Aleph towards the bottom. At the new Mishnah. 109.
Oh, the very bottom, that's right.
Three people ate together. They're not allowed to split apart. They have to stay together in order to bench as a mezumin. The Seder is true as 4. So too is 5. Shisha, however, if they're 6, they're lucky they can divide obviously up into 2 groups. Adasor up till 10. A group of 10 cannot divide up Achu has 3 in order until they're 20 in order to retain the name Elokeinu in benching. Tani we learned. While I was sitting and eating on Shabbos, the Shachar v'lo izkir Shabbos, and forgotten it did not mention Shabbos in Birkas Hamazon. Rav Amar Choser, Rav says you have to say benching over again. Ushmu Amar Eno Choser, Shmuel says you do not say benching over again. Shimon Bar Ba, b'shem, we pass like Rav, you must say benching over again unless it's shalosh shudas, because on shalosh shudas you don't have to eat bread. So therefore, the benching is not an essential component of the meal. But by the first 2 meals where you must eat bread, if you forgot Ritzeh, you have to go over and repeat benching. Okay? Ushmil Bar Ba b'shem Rabbi Yochanan said, what about on Rosh Chodesh? Safik Hitzkish or Rosh Chodesh, if you're not sure if you mentioned Rosh Chodesh, Safik Lo Hitzkish or not, Machzira, so we don't make you go back. Ashkechon Tani Upoli. We have a brisa where.
The first one where you didn't have to do it, you didn't eat bread or something. What was that?
What?
Shalshus,
the third meal. Yeah. If you forget Ritzeh by Shalshus, you don't have to go back. Yeah. Okay, now we also pass on Rosh Chodesh, no matter which meal you forget Yalav Yavo, and you don't have to go back. But this brisa argues. The brisa says, we Ashkechon, you found a brisa which argues. The brisa says, Kol Yom Sheish B'Korban Musaf, any day in which there is a Korban Musaf, Kigon Rosh Chodesh V'Chol Shemoed, such as Rosh Chodesh and Chol Moed. Then, Tzarech La'askir Mein HaMorah, you have to mention the Mein HaMorah means the a synopsis of the event, meaning Yalav Yovo, Ritzei, or whatever. Im Lo Yizkir Machzira, so if you did not mention, we make you go back. V'chol she'ein bo Korban Musaf, any day in which there is no Korban Musaf, Gon Chadakol Purim, Tzarech La'askir Mein HaMorah, you do have to mention also the event in benching. Im Lo Yizkir, if you didn't mention it, so we don't make you go back. But this is clear, this clearly argues what we learned previously, because here it says that on Rosh Chodesh, and on Chol Moed for that matter, you must go back if you forget Yalav Yov and benching. We don't pass it that way.
Even for Chol Moed?
Even for Chol Moed. For Shmona Esrei, you have to go back to Chol Moed. The difference here is Chol Moed is that for Shmona Esrei, you have to go back for Ma'ariv on Chol Moed, whereas for Ma'ariv on Rosh Chodesh, you don't have to go back. The thing is that, again, as we mentioned, every day in which you must eat bread, you have to repeat benching. You forgot Ritzei, Yalav Yavo, etc. Every day or any meal which you don't have to eat bread, you don't have to repeat Ritzei, Yalav Yavo. Okay? So it says
on Yantif itself.
On Yantif itself, you would have to, right? And those 2 meals, you'd have to go back. Chana Barabba, the Chavraya, Chana Barabba and his friends, Havu Yasvin Ochlin b'Shabbos, so they were singing on Shabbos. Mean the Ochlin, once they finished eating, Ubarchin, and they bench. Kamazalei, so Chana Barabba got up. Chazal Gabon, he came back. Ashkechonu and Barchin, he found him benching again. Amar, he said, "V'lo kfar birach, didn't we bench already? What are you benching again for?" Amrin lay, so they said to him, "Mevarchin v'chayzin mevarchin, we benched, but we're benching again. Why? The Ashkechon madkara de shabsa. We forgot Ashkechon shachach. We forgot madkara to mention the shabsa Shabbos, and therefore we have to bench over again." Lo amar hey, Chana Barabba asked him. So what? Didn't Rabbi Abba b'shem Rav Chuna and Rabbi Yirmiyah Mituva say b'shem Rav? Didn't they both say shachach lo iskish Shabbos? If your God didn't mention Shabbos, omer shenasa menucha la'ama Yisrael. And this is something which not very many people know. Let's see if the article consider, which we happen to have here on the table, happens to have this here. If you forget Yalav Yavo or Ritzei in Birkas HaMazon, then you have an opportunity to, right, if you had I don't see it here. Here it is. If it's Shabbos, you say Baruch Atah Hashem Elokeinu Melech Haolam Asher Nasan Shabbos L'Menucha L'Am Yisrael Ba'ava Lo Sulabris Baruch Atah Hashem Mikadesh HaShabbos. If it's Rosh Chodesh, you say Baruch Atah Hashem Elokeinu Melech Haolam Asher Nasan Rosh Chodesh L'Am Yisrael L'Zikaron. I messed this one up this morning. I forgot Yalav Yavo, and I said this, but I only had a bench on which it had the first bracha. So I said this, and I said a signature at the end, but that was a mistake. On Rosh Chodesh, there's no signature. It's just a short bracha. You see, on Shabbos, it has a Baruch Atah and it ends Baruch Atah. But on Rosh Chodesh, it begins Baruch Atah, but doesn't end Baruch Atah. You see that difference? And so on and so forth. There's a special nusach if it's Rosh Chodesh on Shabbos, and if it's on a Yotif, and Shabbos on a Yotif, etc., etc. Okay? So all these cases, you have brachas which you could say. So Chana Barabba said, why did you repeat all of Shemona Esrei? Just say these bracha. So there's a catch, right? The catch is, they said to him, Cain, that's only, we're talking about a case over here, Kshisia Daito, when we're no longer involved in benching. When can you say these things when you're still involved in benching? Now, how do we define still involved in benching? These brachas are very rare because, as you see here in the instruction, if one forgot to recite either Ritzei on the Sabbath or Yalav Yavo on a festival or Rosh Chodesh, he should insert the appropriate blessing below before the fourth blessing of Birkas HaMazon. However, if you started already the fourth blessing of Birkas HaMazon, which is Hatov HaMeitiv, you can no longer insert this. So Lo Yisiyah Daito means you weren't Mesiach Das from the Birkas HaMazon D'Oraisa, which is at the end of the, which is before you begin the fourth bracha. Here, you see over here it has it the precise instructions. If one has begun the next blessing and said the name Hashem, but had not yet said the word Bonei, rebuild, he concludes with the name of the phrase Lamdeni Chukecha, and then teach me your statutes. Then recites the omitted paragraph and continues from there. This ruling is based on the fact that Baruch Atah Hashem Lamdeni Chukecha, bless you Hashem, teach me your statutes, is a verse in Psalms and not a blessing. Only if one has recited the next blessing of Birkas HaMazon is it forbidden to go back to a previous blessing. But if one has merely inserted a verse from Psalms, he is still in the middle of the prayer and may go back to the correct an omission. If one has said the word Bonei, he completes the blessing and makes up for the omission by reciting the appropriate compensatory blessing, which is the blessing we just learned about. If one has begun the first several words of the fourth blessing, he may still switch immediately into the compensatory blessing, since the words Baruch Atah, etc., Ha'olam, are identical in both blessings. However, the compensatory blessing need not be recited after the third Sabbath meal if Birkas HaMazon is recited after sunset. Okay, because since after sunset, so therefore it's not necessary to say it. If the omission is discovered after reciting the word Hakel, the Almighty, of the fourth blessing, it is too late for the compensatory blessing to be recited. In that case, on Sabbath and on a festival day, the first two meals, Birkas HaMazon, must be repeated in its entirety. At the third meal, nothing need be done. On Rosh Chodesh and Chol HaMoed, nothing need be done except if the day fell out on Sabbath. And Ritzei, was omitted, in that case, Birkas Hamazon must be repeated. But if Ritzei was recited and the Ya'aleh V'Yavo was omitted, nothing need be done. Okay? So that's a synopsis of the laws, very brief and concise. Then so that's what they said to him.
Ritzei was omitted, but he said Ya'aleh V'Yavo.
What?
Ritzei was omitted.
Yes.
He said Ya'aleh V'Yavo. It's okay.
That's bad. No good. Even Al
He would say.
No, he has to go back and say
Ya'aleh V'Yavo he can skip.
Right. Well, he shouldn't skip. He'll never skip it. Not intentionally. Inadvertently, if he skipped it. Okay? Tani, we learned then people were walking down the road. Even though they're all eating, from one loaf. In other words, they're all together in this business. But they cannot constitute a zimun because they're traveling. While they're traveling, they're not considered to be together. However, this doesn't really apply nowadays in age, good day and age, because we all, even if you're traveling on a bus, you're all seated together. You're not traveling, right? So then you could make a zimun. Yashu v'achlu, that's like this case. If they sat and they ate, each individual is eating from his own loaf, one can be motzi everybody else. Rabbi Yirmiyah zamin l'chavrei bepundaka, and along this lines we learned Rabbi Yirmiyah, he would be mezamein for his friends, but only when they would get to a motel and they would be stationary, not when they were on the road. Okay? You had two groups of people eating, and now you alluded to this case a few days ago with Korban Pesach. Here it is by benching. Two chaburs which are in the same house. When some of them can see each other, in other words, let's say we have three people over here, and three people in the next room, so not all of us can see each other. But one person sitting here at the end of the table can see the other person, another person sitting at the end of the table over there, so we can be mezamein together. Okay? That we can make one large group for zimun. And if not, and each one benches independently. One cannot make a bracha on wine. This is a separate halacha. Until you mix water into it. Because until you mix water into it, it doesn't have significance to wine. Wine must be somewhat diluted. Say even undiluted. 100% wine, you can make a bracha bari piyagafana. Rabbi Yain and Rabbi Abra Zimna both say b'shem Rabbi Zira lishnei batim nitzrucha. This is talking. The Chiddush Ramish is not when they're in the same house. If they're in the same house, they obviously can join together. The Chiddush is even if they're in two separate houses, if they can see each other through the window, then they join together and make one zimun. Okay? The Chiddush is again by two houses. Rabbi Yochanan said, this is only in a case where they intended to begin with, to bench together because they saw each other through the window. But if they intended to begin with, to be two separate groups, even if they can see each other through the window, they can't bench together.
You assume if they see each other, they can also hear each other?
Not necessarily.
Then how can they bench?
They'll shout. Works. Okay, but they don't have to hear their normal conversations. Yeah. That's right. They can eat with the window closed and then open the window for a benching. Now, Elaine, based in the CA, those houses of the princes, nobody understands this line. None of the Farshim understand this. Based in the CA, if you have the house of princes, what are you going to do for them? It was like one house or two houses. So Pnei Moshe says they used to have a lot of houses close together. So questions like it should be one house or two house. So Nomar, so the Gemara answers, if they would walk through one house to get to the other house, mizamni, then they join together. And if not, a mizamni. But the question then is, what's the difference between this and Stama case of two houses? What is this palatial residences any different than two houses which are right next to each other, which we just discussed a line ago? So I had a great hypothesis. Might be completely false, but that never stopped me before. And I wanted to say that perhaps we take out the Yud and the Aleph and base Nasiye. And what it means is base Nishnashe. if you have an Ezras Nashim. Because we know in halacha there's a shaila of when the people in the Ezras Nashim are considered to be part and parcel of the minyan. So here too I would say that the question is the people sitting in the Ezras Nashim, not necessarily women, but people sitting in the Ezras Nashim, are they considered to be part and parcel of the group in the main shul? You see the question? Can they be considered to be part and parcel of the group? What? It's not so simple. Not so simple. We pass them by davening that they are, but it's not so simple. And a matter of fact, the question is whether if somebody's standing in the Ezras Nashim, it could be it's only one way. The people of the Ezras Nashim join with the people in the main room, but not vice versa. So therefore, the chazan would not be able to stand in the Ezras Nashim. The chazan would have to stand in the main room. Okay. That's a Gemara, I believe, in Baba Basra. Okay? So the thing is here, we learn the same way. Now, is it like two houses or one house? No, Mars, let's take this. Imay Darkan Lav or Elu Alelu. If in order to get to Ezras Nashim, you go through the main shul, then it's considered to be the same room. And then they're both considered to be one large group. If the Ezras Nashim has a separate entrance than the main shul, like here, right, then it would be separate. It's not considered to be the same location. Although this one I don't know, because it is one room lamaisa. You have to bear in mind the old days in a shul, the Ezras Nashim would be indeed a separate room, a balcony or a separate room, right? Yeah. B'nai Reuven, it's one room, but there are places, I don't know if there are any places around today where there are two separate rooms. There used to be. Yeah, I can see it's a good example. Rabbi Achenstein Shul would be a good example of a place where it's like two rooms. And there, Taka, they wouldn't be mitzdaref, because they're two separate entrances. You don't go through one to get to the other. One is upstairs and one is downstairs, like two separate rooms. Okay? I don't think this... What?
What are we talking about?
No, it's exactly the case.
Yeah.
If it's two separate rooms and you don't go through it, they both have two separate entrances, that...
The davening is not together.
Not the davening now, I'm talking about the benching.
Oh, the benching.
Benching.
It's not
Okay.
together.
Not together. Okay? And davening would be the same halacha.
I don't think so.
Oh, yes.
Oh, yeah, davening them together.
Yes.
Yeah.
Listen, this case applies in B'nai Reuven. In B'nai Reuven, it's not so simple, though. If you remember the way Reuven, the Kiddush room is a separate room from the main room. Even if you open the door, so if you open the doors, maybe. In that case, yeah, it's not so simple. You're allowed to do that, though. It's not so simple. So our head there is the assumption that since the doors are built in a sliding fashion, so it's considered to be one large room. But were it not the case, right, we're two separate rooms, so then it's not so simple to be mitzaref people standing in the main shul to the people standing in the back. That's why it's better to have them inside. Now, it doesn't necessarily work both ways. The people in the smaller room can join with the people in the bigger room, because the people in the small room are considered to be batel to the people in the large room. But the people in the large room can't be mitzaref with the people in the small room, because the big room is not batel to the small room. This is our shiloh over here. Again, according to my hypothesis, by Bein Nashe, how do we regard the Ezras Nashim? So the Gemara says, when is it considered to be enough that it's a tziruf for zimun? When there's traversing back and forth from one to the other. Okay? Again, just my theory. Says the Gemara further. You can't make a bracha on wine until you put some water into it. Rabbi Lezer is a quote from our Mishnah. You can. Rabbi Zriko b'Shem Rabbi Yisrael Berachos said, "Morning Rabbi Lezer, Chachamim concede to Rabbi Lezer b'kosha bracha." That the cup used for Kiddush should know since Sochamayin Koshu. That in order to make Kiddush, you have to put water into it. Now, our wine comes pre-diluted. I don't want you to get confused. Our wine, the way we get it, is not full strength wine. It has water in it. But we're talking about, according to this Gemara, it has to be somewhat diluted in order to make Kiddush on it. Okay? So far, so good. So says the Gemara, Nehigin Rabbanan, Ba'ain Kasa de Kiddusha. That was the minhag of the rabbis by Kiddush cups to put in some water. However, Milsa the Rabbi Yossi, Pliga the Rabbi Yoina. That which Rabbi Yossi said argues in that which Rabbi Yoina practiced. But Yossi said you have to add some water. Rabbi Yoina didn't do this. Where do we see Rabbi Yoina didn't do this? In the following case. So Rabbi Yoina Tom Kaso Misaki law. Rabbi Yoina would use a cup of wine Friday night and add water to it Shabbos morning, the same cup he was poured. So he would use a cup of wine Shabbos night, Friday night, and add water to Shabbos morning and make Kiddush on again. But Friday night he would make it undiluted. So you see, Rabbi Yoina knows you can even make Kiddush on undiluted wine. Okay? Now, by the way, we don't paskin this way. We paskin if you use a cup for wine, use a cup of wine for Kiddush. In order to use it over again, you can't just pour in some more wine. We have a more elaborate ceremony, which is we take the wine, pour a little bit back, and then pour a little bit in, right? So that's the way we do it. But that's a chumrah. According to the strict letter of the law, you only need to do one of two steps. Either pour some back, and then, pour some back obviously does the scratch that. All you have to do is pour a little bit of water or wine into the cup. Okay, so that's the avid, that's good enough. We do both directions, pour a little bit back and then a little bit back in. But Rabbi Yoina used to do the bottom line, which is to pour in some more in the morning. That was sufficient.
Wasn't there a health problem because this was Yoshin wine?
What?
In those days, wasn't the wine very strong?
Very strong.
It's called Yoshin.
No, Chodesh. The Chodesh wine is very strong. Right. Yain Yoshin is good. Yain Chodesh is very strong.
So, health reasons, you could...
Yeah, well, since it's damaging the health, that's why you shouldn't make Kiddush on it. Right? It's not considered to be a proper beverage. Okay? Says more ain't Shumaz. Now we're on top of Nun Vav and Ralph. Maybe you'll say that he had the rate diluted it Friday night as well. It can't be. If you drink beverages which haven't been diluted and left out overnight, Tomo Barosho, you are liable to death. Why? Because who drinks from those beverages? Snakes. Snakes don't drink fresh wine. If it's too undiluted, it's like vinegar, they can't drink it. But if it's a little bit diluted, they drink it. So everything Gemara says, how could you can't say he diluted it the night before, because then he wouldn't be able to leave it overnight. Says more, that's not a kasha. Rabbi Yecha really did dilute it. But he left them overnight in a hermetically sealed metal vessel so that the snakes couldn't get it there. Rabbi Yecha said, Rishonim are Yerushalmi. In the elders, the old sages, they used to ask, small mausha to sayeh limim b'kosher bracha. So can one's left hand assist one's right hand in making kiddush? From this question, Achma min atlas, you learn three things. Achma, you hear, shutzor tov simin, that you must hold your cup in your right hand, unless you're a lefty, which you're on left hand. Your hand has to be at least a tefach off the table, because otherwise, why do you need to assist your hand? You just hold flat on the table. Why you need assistance? What? Well, besides it has to be balanced a tefach off the table. It's not a tefach off when you need to help yourself, right? And you also have to. You also have to look at it. The reason why, how can we learn this out from the question? Because obviously, if we want you to, we've asked the question whether you could help yourself with your left hand. It must be that it must be that you have to focus on it this whole time and not put it down. And focus, because if you could put it down, so just put it down. Don't hold it this whole time. Your hand won't get tired. You won't have a problem. It must be you must focus on it all the time. And we extrapolated for the fact that you must focus on it all the time. They must be looking at it the whole time. Okay? Rabbi Yachid said, there are three statements that are said about the cup for Kiddush or Birkas Hamazon, whatever bracha you're making. Mai, it should be full. Eater, it should be surrounded. The two pshatim are surrounded. One pshat is that it should be surrounded with little cups. That's why very often in Jewish homes you have a whole bunch of little cups around the big cup, because that's itur. Another interpretation which is given is that you have to hold it like that, right, with your fingers around the base of the cup. What? Yeah, it's in the Bible.
It's like filling, same principle.
You hold filling?
Right-handed, then you do it.
No, that's true, but now we're moving on to the other issues, right? Okay? And the third thing is mudach has to be rinsed. You have to rinse out the cup. You can't use the dirty cup for kiddush. Not just for hygienic reasons, for derech eretz reasons. And we learn all these three things in the same pasuk. The Shlosha pasuk echad says, Naphtali svarotzon. Naphtali was satiated, umali birkas Hashem, and it's full of the blessing of God. Sava, satiated, is itur, that it's surrounded by other cups. Ratzon, mudach, as he said, which is appealing, which means that it's rinsed out beforehand. Mole kimashmo, that's be full of wine. Amrachid said he must cease. Okay, if you did this, Maxi Ta'or is the same immediately afterwards about the tribe of Asher. Yam v'Dorom Yerusha, you inherit the west and the south. Adzoche, you merit Adzoche lira sholom hazeh, you merit inheriting this world and Yolam Haba and the world to come. Amr Abelazar said, Kos Pagu, aim of Archim. If you have a damaged cup, you can't make a brach on it. What is Pagu? Tamo, no. That's what it means, literally. What does it mean here? Tamo, if you tasted it, Pugmo. It damages it and you can't use it again.
Messed up taste.
It doesn't have a messed up taste. You just tasted it. It's considered to be used. Here the garments that was used already. Used goods shouldn't be used again for kiddush then. Okay? No, the cup. The cup. Right. And even if you use it for kiddush last night, since you drank a little bit from it, you can't use it the next day. Yeah. Unless you're masakin, you pour it a little bit back in, a little bit out again, that whole rigmarole. Okay. At Shema Minot class. You're from this three things again, three things from here. Shema Minot goes Pogame Varchlo. First of all, here that a damaged cup, you can't make a brach on it. And also Tzar Shebo Kashir, it has to have a shiur. Now, how do we know it has to have a shiur? It's not so clear for me that it has to have a shiur. So the Pnei Moshe explains that by virtue of the fact that you can't just add water, it means that has to have a minimum amount of wine. And that means that once you drank a little bit, you can't refill it with water because the wine ratio has been depleted as well. So if you want to use it again, you have to get more wine. And the Pnei Moshe, the ratio of Pnei Moshe is, although there are other ratios, is has to be a quarter of revius of wine. And if there's anything less than that in the cup, it's no good. Okay? Be that as it may, so the point is, it needs a shiur. The reason why we say it needs a shiur is because we don't just tell him, go and fill up with water, but rather he has to bring more wine. The tamo, and also, of course, even this, if you taste it, that is a type of damage. Alright, Tanchum Bar Yudan. Tanchum Bar Yudan said, Kavod Hayom Kodem LeKavod Laila. In terms of honoring the day of Shabbos, you honor the day of Shabbos over the night. With your better food should be eaten during the day. You should wear better clothing during the day. I always try and put on a nicer tie Shabbos morning.
That's the thing is the vittles. You get better vittles.
You get better food. You like chulin better, right? No, but the point is everything. Also the way you dress. You're supposed to dress a little bit better Shabbos morning than Shabbos night. Yes. What? No reason given. Probably because of the Kedusha, I would guess, of Mon. That there was no, the nace of the Mon having remained fresh till the next day. That's just a hunch. That might be also too. That's true. Now that you jog my memory, I recall they give that reason. That Matan Torah occurred Shabbos morning. Very good. Yeah. In terms of again, Kavod Hayom Kodem LeKavod Laila. Kedusha Salayla, however, which kiddush is more significant? Friday night Kiddush. That's me the right, that's right. Who's the loyal Kodim Seclusion Ziyom? Ezu covered yom, it's a typo where all the Mepharshim say, what Kiddush do you say during the day? Rabbi Elishim Shem Rabbi Yaakov Barach and Rabbi Elishim Bar Yosef said, Shem Rav, Bar Priyagofen. And you know, Briskers, all they say is Bar Priyagofen. They don't say any psukim beforehand. That's what it says in the Yerushalmi, just Bar Priyagofen. All those psukim we had, unnecessary. Okay? Just, time filler. Rabbi Zrikon Bar Chamui, the Rabbi Zrikon. Rabbi Zrikon, the son-in-law of Rabbi Zrikon, said, he's Kirshel Chanukah Bar, he didn't say. He's Kirshel Chanukah Bar, he mentioned Al-Anisim in Noda, which is Bracha on the land of Israel. The Kilsoso, and they praised him. The old days it wasn't so posh, it wasn't yet formulated properly. So he's the first one who did it, I guess, and they praised him. Oh, that was a good thing. Rabbi Ba, Braid Rabbi Chia Bar Ba, he's scared dying emes batova meitiv. He was at an Ovel's house, Rachmana Litzlan, and he said, dying meit emes, the bracha justifying Hashem's judgment as part of the fourth bracha, the Kilsaso, and they praised him for that. Rabbi Ba, Braid Rabbi Chia Bar Abba, said, interesting thing, and the Achronim try and change the girsa here. I'll show you how in a minute. But in the meantime, let's learn it inside. Ochal mahalech. If you ate walking, you have to stand still to bench. Ochal, if you ate standing, you have to sit to bench. You always have to go up a madrega in order to bench. If you bench sitting, you recline to bench. So many of the Achronim don't like this because reclining seems to be less derech eretz than sitting. So they change and they say, Acha Mesiv Yoshev Muvarich. But I don't know, and Yoshev is the highest madrega. But I don't know. It sounds in the Yerushalmi, simple shot, that in the old days, the takel reclining to be a more significant means of being at the table, more noble. Like we do on the night of Pesach. What's so difficult?
They used to recline when they ate.
Oh, that's the next case. If you ate reclining, you have to put on your jacket and bench. And this is the source, putting on a jacket. Right? So some of the Mepharshim say it doesn't mean necessarily putting on a jacket, but it means you have to cover your arms. And this is a general principle. If you come to daven, you come to bench, you should have your arms covered. You should wear a long sleeve shirt or put on a jacket. Yeah.
So long sleeve shirt, devil's
free to. Yeah. According to the, I saw that somewhere here. Somebody says that.
There's different things.
The Amudei, you don't have it. You don't have this. You have the parish on the bottom. Amudei Yerushalmi Tinyana. All the way at the bottom brings down from Sikta, which is one of the Medrashei Halacha, that if the be misatif means to make sure that your arms are covered. Okay? Says the Gemara, if you do this, you cover yourself. Because malachim cover themselves with their wings. If they have 6 wings, and they cover themselves with their wings. Time a while it says so to do ituf it's proper for benching. There are others who say ituf means to wear a hat. And in the Mekubalim mode, it's very important to wear a hat. There's a Maisa with Rabbi Yisrael Najara. Yisrael Najara is one of the Talmidim of the Ari. He wrote several of the Zmiros. The ones that start with Yisrael. They're written by Yisrael, Rabbi Yisrael Najara. I think he might have even written Kari Bone. Kari Bone is Yud, Kari Bone, Shvachin, Ravavin, Elaka, and Lemikdasha. So it says in there who wrote them? No, Friday night. It's not there? No, it's got to be.
That's a cash.
Then they wrote it.
Somehow that must be by Nidonia. Nidonis
Yep, it does.
All right, we saw in the Jara. So we saw in the Jara who wrote Kari Bone. He's a student of the Arizal, right? He was later the rabbi of Gaza. Last one, probably. But anyway, so he was a very big Baal Zemer. And it says that the Malachim once came there, Tzitz Eliezer brings us down. It says Malachim once came and they wanted to kill him. Why? Because he was sitting and singing to the Zmiros he wrote at the Shabbos table without a hat on. And it wasn't proper. So somehow he got saved because he was a Kabbalist. But from this we see how Pi Kabbalah is supposed to wear a hat. And I guess maybe they touch up here, Ituf means to wear a hat. Alright. Let's start the next pair.
Compose 400 swears.
400 swears, yeah. We don't have all of them, obviously. I don't know which other ones he composed, but Kari Bone is the most famous. Okay, let's go on. Next pair. These are the distinctions between Beis Shammai and Beis Hillel in terms of eating a meal. Beis Shammai says when you make Kiddush Friday night, you first say Mekadesh HaShabbos, and then the wine, the opposite of what we do, Beis Hillel like we do, first you make Bar Priyagofen, and then and then Mekadesh HaShabbos. Matame in the Beis Shammai. What's the logic of Beis Shammai? They say Shekdusha Ziyom Karmel Yan Shiyavo. Why do you make Kiddush on the wine? Because it's Shabbos. So what came first? Shabbos comes first. So you ever first make a bracha on Shabbos, then make a bracha on the wine. It already became incumbent upon you to celebrate the sanctity of the day. Once Shabbos began, before the wine came, before you came to make Kiddush. What's the logic of Beis Hillel? They say, no, you can't say Kiddush without wine. So therefore, what bracha has to come first? The wine, because that generates the Kiddush. Dovrach, another interpretation, if you don't like that one, Hayayin Tadir. Wine you drink frequently. Kedusha ain't a tadira. Kiddush is not as frequent as drinking of wine. Tadir v'sheinu tadir, of course, tadir kodim. Doesn't say explicitly in the Gemara, but frequent things come first. So here is a big thing the Achronim say. Yerushalmi is saying with certainty, something which the Bali is unsure of. It says here, tadir goes over kadosh, because the bracha and kedusha of Shabbos is holier. Yeah, which bracha does Beis Hillel say you say first? Bracha on the wine, which is more frequent. Okay? It says more, ask more kasha. I'm sorry. First one says, Rabbi Yossi, B'divrei Shteim, from both of them we learn, Yain v'Avdolah, Yain kodim. If you make Avdolah, the bracha of wine comes first. Give it go to Beis Shammai. Why? Kluta made the Beis Shammai, Shekdusha Ziyom Garmel Yan Shiyavo. What's the logic of Beis Shammai? That the Kedusha of the day requires Kiddush. Began here. It's not the Avdolah which causes the wine to come, but rather what causes there to be wine Motzei Shabbos? Shabbos! Shabbos! Yes. So Shabbos is what generates Avdolah. It's more than that. The Shabbos generates Avdolah, right? So if Shabbos generates Avdolah, well,
still comes first.
That's the point. On Friday night, Beis Shammai says first you make the bracha on Shabbos and then on wine. There's no bracha on Shabbos, right? So what comes first? The Bar Priyagofen. Well, then you make Avdolah. Then Avdolah comes second, right? Excuse me.
What's there's a number for something?
They'll come to that later on. Monday we'll discuss that. Again, The kind of Avdol Garm Yain Shel, but here since Avdol doesn't cause the wine today, Yain Kodim, the wine comes first. And according to Beis Hillel, Klum Tamei the Beis Hillel Shayain Tadir Kedusha Ain't Tadira. If we go by Tadir, by what's more prevalent, so to here, Chain Hoil Vayain Tadir Avdol Ain't Tadira. Since wine is more prevalent, Avdol is less prevalent. Yain Kodim. Ramana said, both of Yerushalmi Berachos we learn Yain v'Avdola. If you have wine and Avdola kodemes. He argues. He says no. Avdola comes first. Not the way we paskin. Why does he say that?
Wine comes first. Avdola.
Okay. You have registered your opinion. You see the wide margins in the Gemara. So if you want to put in your own shot, you can put it on. Kluta made the Yerushalmi. What's a Yerushalmi? He says, don't look at it that way. Look at it this way. You became. Why do you make Mekadosh Shabbos first? Because the requirement to be Mekadosh Shabbos came before the requirement of wine, because Shabbos entered before you started making Kiddush, right? So he says here too. Here it's Motzei Shabbos already. You already are Chayiv and Avdola before you make the bracha on wine. What's the proof of that? Say Avdola Shmon Esrei. So therefore the Avdola should precede the wine. Now, this sounds like it goes far. Why don't we pass it this way? Because we hold on the contrary. The Avdola in Shmona Esrei means that I don't need the Avdola anymore of the Avdola later on. Why do I make the Avdola later on? For the people who didn't daven. So on the contrary, the fact we make Avdola in Shmona Esrei is more of a reason for us to make wine first. Because now the Avdola later on is not integral to the process. According to him, so the fact that we make Avdola and Shmona Esrei indicates Avdola is a prior chiyuv. According to us, could be, maybe. But the fact that we have Avdola and Shmona Esrei releases us from the prior chiyuv, and now we can make Bar Piriak Kofen first. Okay?
Why bother with wine altogether? Yeah. What's the reason for the wine?
Mitzvah D'Rabbanan. It's part of. So name it. So says the Gemara. Again, let's do it again. Our manam midivish name of both, and we learn Yain v'Avdola. If you had a choice of wine, Avdola kodemes. Well, Avdola comes first. Tamein why? Because Tamein b'Yerushalmi el shekvar yitzchai b'kedusha ziyah. Chum Tamein b'Yerushalmi el b'shekvar yitzchai b'kedusha ziyah. The logic of Yerushalmi is they became Rei Chayev in Kiddush in being say Mekadosh Shabbos. Actually, by Yain before the wine came. The God here too, since it's Motzei Shabbos. Oh, quite these Chayev Avdola. Actually, by Yain, since it's already Chayev and Avdola before the wine came to the table. Avdola kodemes, and that'll be true according to Beis Hillel. Klum Tamei the Beis Hillel shall Yain goyreim l'kedusha zayom shetei omer. Beis Hillel says by kedusha, by Kiddush, Friday night. There, you make the bracha of wine first, because wine generates the kiddush. However, by Motzei Shabbos have those independent chiyuv from wine. The proof of that is you make the Avdola and Shmona Esrei. Again, he's really banking heavily on this Avdola and Shmona Esrei. So since he says here are those a distinct chiyuv, it's the wine that it generates. The Avdola sheteyomer Avdola kodemes. That's why the Avdola can be said first before the bracha on the wine. Zira said Midivish name from both of them we learned Mavdilim below yain. You make Avdola without wine. But you can't make a kiddush except with wine. Now, from this normally you would explain that line that Avdola you can make in Shmona Esrei, whereas kiddush you're not yet in Shmona Esrei. But he takes that a step further. Says the Gemara, who daited Rabbi Zira. This is the underlying logic of Rabbi Zira. Rabbi Zira not dealing ala sheikhar. You can make Avdola on beer, on coffee, on fruit juices, on anything. But ein mikachim ela b'yayin. Right? Right? Excuse me? Yeah, you can make Kiddush Chal, but only Friday night, not Shabbos morning. And also, that's only B'diyah. You can't make it, if Kiddush, that's B'diyah then, and you can't make Kiddush on beer. You can't. It has to dafka be either wine or challah.
What about the Kiddush of Friday night in Shul Esrei?
But now let's get Rabbi Yehuda.
That might fulfill Chiyuv D'Oraisa, but it doesn't fulfill the requirement Rabbanan of Kiddush Al Yayin. And the required Kiddush Al Yayin is only Friday night again, not Motzei Shabbos. That's what it's all about. Well, in essence, I'm answering you in too long a fashion. Let me answer you much more succinctly. True, the D'Oraisa you could be Yotzei Shmon Esrei, but we're talking about here the Rabbanan. Okay, so the Rabbanan here must be Al Yayin. That's where we're deriving from. That's why Beis Hillel hold Friday night you definitely have to say Yayin first, because the Yayin is what generates the Chiyuv of Kiddush. Motzei Shabbos, since you use anything else, since the Abdullah Chiyuv is independent, that's why, according to this second opinion, the bracha of Abdullah precedes the bracha on the wine. B, that's why you don't even have to have wine. Use anything else. Okay? Says the Gemara. Excuse me. Right? We tack on here another statement Rabbi Zera, even though it's not really relevant to what we're talking about here. It is that if you have to go from place to place to your Kiddush on wine, you go from place to place because Kiddush on wine is primary. I guess it is really part of the statement. The words Havdalah can be made on beer. You don't have to dafka make on wine. You don't have to hear it on wine. But Kiddush you dafka have to hear on wine. Okay? I'm Rabbi Yossi, the Rebbe, the Higin Tamon. They had a custom in Bavel. Interesting custom, which we still have today, even though it's not relevant anymore. The Malkum Shein Yain, if there's no wine in the city, the Chazan goes in front of the Amid in Shul, and he says one bracha, an abbreviation of the 7 brachas of Shemon Esrei, and he signs off Mekadosh Yisrael V'Yom HaShabbos. We have that. We still do it. That's Baruch Atah Hashem Elokeinu Melech Haolam. Etc. That's this. Thing is, in the old days, why did they institute this? For people who didn't have wine for Kiddush. We keep it. So the Rishonim, some of the Rishonim even have another gears in the Yerushalmi, which is that this is a Kiddush for the Tzibur. Okay, which would justify why we have it nowadays, even though we all go home and make Kiddush at home. That despite the fact that we make Kiddush at home, there's a din Kiddush on the Yechidim, on the individual families at home, and then there's again Kiddush on the Tzibur, and that's what we do in Shul, and that's how we still keep this minute, even though all of us have wine at home waiting for us.
So they did both. They said this bracha, and then they said the Kiddush as well, right?
Right, but they said in Shul, it seems from the Yerushalmi here, without the added on versions of the Rishonim, that the only reason they said is because some people did not have wine at home. But we who have wine really shouldn't have to say it in Beit Shul.
I think they said it because it's a couple of shots. Normally don't repeat
No, it's not because of Kavod Shabbos. And there's another reason. Maybe the article brings it down here. Latecomers, very good, right? So because the latecomers shouldn't be stuck in the fields where their shuls were in the old days. Now, both of these reasons are the reason why we have a minhag, although I don't know if everybody observes it, not to say this tefillah one Friday night a year, which is that wrong. Pesach night. The 3 paragraphs are also omitted on the first night of Pesach. Okay? These following 3 paragraphs are omitted by an individual praying alone, or there's a chiddush by an occasional minion, such as that in the home of a mourner. I guess also pick-up minion, he wouldn't say it. You said a pick-up minion in your house. However, even in such case, if one wishes to, we may recite the paragraph Magin Avos. The 3 paragraphs are also omitted on the first night of Pesach. So in these cases, first of all, he's saying, so There are no latecomers. There's also no kiddush for the tzibur. You're not the tzibur. You're a pickup minion. And also Pesach night, there used to be no latecomers because everybody used to come to shul in order to go home then and say the Seder quickly. And besides that, everybody has wine for the Pesach Seder. So you don't need a kiddush in the shul.
On Yom Kippur, no one's late and there's no kiddush.
What?
On Yom Kippur nights, Kol Nidre nights.
No, I had the rabbah. But since there's no kiddush, we should have the kiddush in shul. It's the plan. He says, he brings down here the reason of the late comers. He doesn't bring down our Yerushalmi. Okay, let's see further. Says more of a kasha of the Beis Shammai. I have a kasha of Beis Shammai, which is the following. Leila Shabbos Chavida. What do you do Friday night in the following case? You're sitting and eating. From before, we don't have these cases anymore. But the old days was prevalent. People would start meals Friday afternoon, continue into Friday night. It happened. Maybe it's late Shabbos, chveis. So, Erev Shabbos, you're singing the Erev Shabbos. The Chashei Cholel Shabbos now became Shabbos. Vein Shomel also a kos. You only have 1 cup of wine. What are you going to do? Now you have 2 obligations to fulfill. What are they? Kos of Birkos Hamazon and Kos of Kiddush. We only have 1 cup. So what are you going to do, Great Beis Shammai? At Omar Menichul Achra Hamazon, maybe say leave it to after benching. Bench, right? Leave the cup to after benching. And then after benching, say Kiddush, and then say Bor Priya Gofet. Won't work. How are you going to do it? No matter which way you want to do it. If you want to first make a bracha on Kiddush, the truth is, I have to give you another fact, which the Gemara doesn't give us. Beis Shammai says if you get wine in the middle of the meal, at the end of the meal, you don't wait to make a Bar Priya on it after benching, because we're afraid you'll forget. You make a Bar Priya in the middle of the meal, right then when you get it. Beis Hillel holds if you get wine in the middle of the meal, and you don't want to drink it right now, you wait till after benching to make the bracha. We're not afraid you're going to make the bracha. You make the bracha afterwards. So now, ask the Yerushalmi, how are you going to do this according to Beis Shammai? You maybe want to say Menichul Achra Mozum Mishal Shekulam Alav. Maybe say leave it to after the meal and make all the brachas on it. Won't work. Manavshach. Let's go through the stages. Maybe you want to say first make the bracha on Kiddush right now. Before you bench, you can't do that. Hamazon Koitin. Because you became chayiv in benching before you became chayiv in Kiddush. Because when did you start eating? Before Shabbos. When do you become chayiv in Kiddush? After Shabbos begins. So therefore you have to first bench. Right? You okay, you want to bench first. That won't work either. Because you can't, because the halacha according to Beis Shammai is, if you intend to bench, but you have a cup of wine which you got before benching, when do you have to start make the bracha on it? Before benching. Beis Shammai is before benching. So you can't wait to make. If you want it, you'll say wait for Kiddush. Make the bracha wine after, and make the bracha on Kiddush. See, you're in a catch-22. It's a paradox. You want to, if you say let's wait for Kiddush after benching, can't do that. Why? Because that would mean you want to say Birkas Hamazon, then Kiddush, then wine. You're not allowed to do that. Because you're not allowed to push. First you have to bench. Right? I said it over wrong. Sorry. Let me scratch that. Let me try it again. You want to make Kiddush. You want to make Kiddush first. And then bench. You're not allowed to do that. Because what responsibility do you have first? Benching before Kiddush, because you will start eating from before Shabbos. So first you have to bench. Okay. You want to bench and then say Bor Priya Gofen and then Kiddush? You can't do that either. Because Beis Shammai holds, if you have wine on the table from before bench, you're not allowed to put up the bracha till after benching. You have to make the bracha before benching.
That's because it's free. You're going to forget about
Yes.
it. But it's Friday night. You're not going to forget about it because you know you have to make it.
Okay, good question. Let's leave that out for a second. What? You did. In this case, you did. That's in this case we did. Yivarech al yayin hayoim kodim. You want to make a bracha? Okay, so what should you do? So make a bracha now on the wine. Make a bracha on the wine now. Can't do that. You have to make a bracha on Kiddush first, because Beis Shammai holds Kiddush comes before wine. But you can't make a bracha on Kiddush first, because before you make Kiddush, you have to bench. So you're stuck. You have a vicious cycle. You can't say Kiddush first, because you'd have to bench first. You can't say benching first, because you have to say the wine first. You can't say the wine first, because then you lose Kiddush. So what are you going to do? You're stuck. It's a conundrum. It goes around in circles. Says Gemara, let's try and answer from the following case. You got a way out? Well, let's see. Gemara's going to have a way out.
Yeah, there is a way out.
All right, let's see. It's too late. Let's see inside. Let's learn from the following case. It's true. If wine comes to him after you finish before benching, is only that cup there. Or my Rebbe Ba said, Beis Shammai only make the bracha immediately because Aideshu bracha ketana shema yishkach v'yishteh. You might forget to make the bracha after Birkas Hamazon and drink it without the bracha. However, somebody said this before. Here, since he's going to make it part of a kiddush. Hey, you said this, right? Since he's going to make it very good. Since he's going to make it part of a kiddush, no shachach, he won't forget to make it part of a kiddush. So therefore, Kate said, Yasu al divrei Beis Shammai. How could Beis Shammai do work it? First you bench, and then you make kiddush, and then you make wine, which is the proposal you made before. Okay? Everything works out in that case. So the same thing with Beis Hillel. B'motzei Shabbos. Hey Chavida. What do you do with Motzei Shabbos? Hey Yeshivochel b'Shabbos. You're singing here in Shabbos. V'choshcha Motzei Shabbos now became Motzei Shabbos. Shabbos ebbed away. V'ein shamel el sakos. You only have one cup. So you have to do two things here. You have to bench halakos. You then say Abdullah halakos. What do you do? Atomar menichol lachar hamazon. You want to say leave it till after benching. And then say Abdullah and benching on the cup. Manav shal, it's not going to work. Yivarech al yayin. Maybe say first make a bracha on the wine. Is that you? Okay. Yivarech al yayin. Maybe say first make the bracha on the wine. Hamazon koydem. You can't make a bracha on wine before benching. Why? Because Bill Sill says, Nali Beis Shammai. Shammai says, you make bracha on wine before benching. Because you might forget later on. But Sill says, no, you wait till after benching. Okay, so you can't make the bracha on wine now. You have to wait till after benching. So maybe you'll say, okay, fine. So what's the big deal? Make the bracha on benching. Make the bracha on benching. And then drink the wine right afterwards. What's the problem? Says Gemara, very interesting thing. We don't pass them this way. Haner koydem. You have to say the bracha on the ner before the bracha on wine. We say the bracha on wine first. Yerushalmi held you make the bracha on the candle first.
He's wrong.
We don't pass them like Yerushalmi. Right? Yes, because we don't pass them like the Yerushalmi. But the Yerushalmi held you make the bracha on the ner first. Yivarech hamazon on ner koydem. There comes first. Yivarech on there, so maybe say, okay, it's a big deal. Make the bracha on the candle. You can't do that. Abdullah kedemes. Because you got to make the bracha on Abdullah before you make the bracha on the candle. Because we're going to let the shita down here that Abdullah comes before the brachas. The Abdullah comes before the Bari Berachos and before the ner. So now we're stuck. What are you going to do? You're going to bench. You'd have to bench. Then say Abdullah, then say Ner, then say Bari Berachos. By that time, the Bari Berachos has very little to do with benching. So says the Gemara, what do you do? We'll learn from this case. Rabbi said, "Lo nezchu Beis Shammai sil abirkas hamazon shu betchila." Birkas hamazon comes first. Valavdola Shibasoi. Not like we said over here. Avdola comes at the end. Aman Elku, what's the machloket? Alaner Val B'Sami. How do you do ner B'Sami? Shebesham mean B'Sami L'chakach ner, like we do. Shammai says first B'Sami and then ner. With so many more L'chakach B'Sami, first ner and then B'Sami. Rav Amar, Rav and Rav Yehuda say Halach can be shomer B'Sami L'chakach ner. Halach is B'Sami and then candles. Despite the fact that it's said in the name of Beis Shammai, yeah, that's what we do. B'Sami first and then ner. So Ketzad Yasel Dvir Mitzvah. So what do you do according to Mitzvah? Yivarech Al Hamozon. First you bench, V'Tchila, V'Achakar Yivarech Al Yain, and then you make the bracha on the wine, V'Acharkach Al Ner, and then you make the bracha on the ner. So it's not clear exactly what the Yerushalmi is. We see like Yerushalmi is reneging on it. Previously the Yerushalmi said you make the bracha on the candle first. Now the Yerushalmi says you make the bracha on the wine first. So either the Yerushalmi is reneging on what it said before, that taka wine becomes before candle, and like we have, right? Wine, B'Samim, candle, because we said B'Samim comes before candle. That would be the conclusion of Yerushalmi. Or it could be the Yerushalmi is only saying in this specific case. We have the problem with the juxtaposition of benching. In this case, the Yerushalmi says, there you make Bar Priyagofen before you say B'Samim and Ner, and afterwards you make Havdalah, and we will stop here for this evening. Have a good Shabbos.